So, good morning, bore da, croeso'r cyfarfod, warm welcome to the meeting. So the first agenda item is the appointment of chair, and at the annual meeting, Council determined that the Labour group will chair this committee. The committee is advised that Councillor David Evans is the chair of the committee for the municipal year, so I'd like to hand over to Councillor David Evans. Thank you.
Thank you very much, members. Good morning and welcome to the Environment and Overview Scrutiny Committee. Can I move to agenda item 2, appointment of vice chair? Can we have a nomination for appointment of vice chair? In that absence, can I put forward Councillor David Healy? Seconded. Thank you. Show any other nominations? Show of hands in favour of Councillor Healy. That's carried. Thank you very much. Well, thank you, Councillor Healy. Moving on to agenda item 3, any apologies received or substitutions?
Thank you, Chair. We have one substitution, Councillor Andrew Parkhurst for Councillor David Coggins-Cogan. Thank you.
Councillor Dennis Hutchinson, I believe, has got a doctor's appointment.
Okay, thank you very much for that. Agenda item 4, any declarations of interest, including whipping declarations? To receive any declarations and advise members accordingly. Anybody? Nobody's indicating. Okay, thank you very much. Agenda item 5, the minutes to confirm as a correct record the minutes of the meeting held on the 17th of March 2026. I shall go through them page at a time. Page 5, page 6, 7, 8, 9. Councillor.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. On page 9, second sentence there, I requested an update on the A494 to be reassessed. When I actually go forward in the agenda today, page 19, the action to date is further consideration to be given to the request. Well, it's not a further consideration I'm looking for. It's some movement on reassessing what was asked for at the committee. So I'm unaware of anything to date on that. And in the resolution, brackets E and brackets F, I'm awaiting information on those 2 items as well, as I'm sure other members are as well. Thank you, Chair.
Yeah. Quick question. Yeah, by all means.
On that screen behind you, either my eyes are going funny because I can't read any names. Have my eyes gone funny? Oh, it's about, thank you. I thought it was me.
The first one is ongoing, so that is work in progress as I understand it. It's in the action tracking, which we'll come to shortly, but that is on the. Sorry, what were the other 2 that you mentioned?
Resolve D and F.
Oh, D and F. Okay. Sorry, I've got it now. That's fine. Does the chief officer want to come in on those?
Katie, do you want to? On page 9, the second item about Councillor Mike Pearce requested that the A494 be reassessed based on new criteria.
Yeah, at the moment I don't have an update, I'm afraid, so we'll have to come back to Councillor Pearce separately. But yeah, we certainly can provide that outside of the meeting, that's not a problem.
The other one was the resolution, brackets E and F. That further representations will be accepted, but in particular, we'll make available the reasons why the roads that were put forward did not qualify. That was debated at some length at the last meeting.
Yeah, that will be provided in due course. It's subject to officer availability. Obviously, they're still working on a number of TROs at the moment, so they'll need to set up separate sessions with yourselves, but we'll take that back and certainly arrange something separately.
A particular date, otherwise, if it's open-ended, it just rolls on and on. So I don't want to hold you to any particular date, but have you got anything in mind? Thank you.
I'll have to confirm that separately. Sorry, I can't do that today. It depends on the officer availability. I've only got 2 officers and it depends on their workload, but I'll come back to the committee and confirm it.
Okay, thank you very much for that. Okay, page 10. Okay, subject. We just. Okay, we happy to accept that, subject to Katie coming back with us. Moved.
Moved, Chair.
Seconded. All those in favour? That's carried. Thank you very much. Agenda item 6 was urgent matters agreed by the chair. No urgent matters brought forward. Agenda item 7, forward work programme action tracking. I'll hand over to Margaret.
Thank you, Chair. So if we move to the forward work programme 26-27 in front of you, there are some additions from when this was printed. So the 7th of July, we've got the annual performance report and the enforcement performance and policy fly tipping report. There are also some further reports which we are expecting, which will be the Flintshire and Wrexham investment solar bus network improvements, the fleet strategy, procurement commissioning and contract award for LCV fleet hire, that's day rentals, and a contract extension of the NRG Riverside contract for refuse collection vehicles until the 2027. Then in September, we've got road space management, we've got the review of gritting policy routes, etc. 6th of October, we've got the review of 3 weekly bin collections. November, we will be looking at HAMP, and that includes things like potholes and stuff like that. December, we've got the grass cutting and weed control. And then there are a couple of items to be added, which are dependent on the information becoming available. And we do have an outstanding item which was due to come to the committee at the end of last year, but that was deferred due to officer availability from Denbighshire. But we are working on a date for the Parking Partnership North Wales to come to our committee in the next few months. Moving on to the action tracking, there are a couple of ongoing ones here. The one that Councillor Pears alluded to, that's still work in progress, and I think that's everything from me. Do we have any items that members want to put forward for consideration?
Okay, Councillor Healy.
Thank you very much for reporting on that. Could I request that in the forward work programme we schedule a report, if it's possible, from the climate change team, because now that we don't have a climate change committee, well, our website actually says that it is this committee that is responsible for monitoring our journey towards net zero, the target set by Welsh Government for public authorities to achieve by 2030. And we have actually had a report from the team in the past on the 11th of March last year, but it's now over a year. So I'm wondering, unless there is a particular problem like illness within the team or what have you, if we could possibly have an update on how we're getting on with regard to moving towards that target. Thank you.
Okay, can I bring in the Chief Officer?
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Councillor Healy, for that suggestion. I don't see there's a problem in bringing a report. In fact, would welcome bringing a report to give you an update in terms of where we're up to. Can I suggest in terms of the forward work programme that in reality, probably best after August, after the summer holidays and the like. So if we put that on the forward work programme for the autumn, happy to bring that and happy to bring the team to present that as well. Possibly October with the reporting schedule in terms of getting those reports through the system. But if we can schedule that for October, that should be okay.
Okay, thank you very much. Councillor Richardson.
Thank you, Chair. You're hearing me okay? I'm having IT issues. I'm on a loaned laptop from IT, so
Yeah, we hear you.
thank you very much, Chair. I missed the minutes, so it might be wanting to go in the minutes, or it may be wanting to go on the forward work plan. But at the last meeting in March, I spoke to the Chief Officer about the amount of grey and blue bags that we may or may not have issued in relation to the 3 weekly collection, because we're all aware that you can have as many bags as you want. And I also asked, was there a cost related to that? And the answers weren't available at that time. So it was suggested that someone would get in touch with me outside of the meeting, and they didn't. And also, when I was speaking at that same meeting, I spoke to the service managers with some ideas about reducing walking distances for the operatives on the recycling. And again, I was told somebody would contact me outside of the meeting, but they didn't. So I'm not sure if that wants to go in the minutes, because I missed that section because I'm having trouble with my IT. I've got my Zoom up now, but I can't see the agenda. So I'd take your guidance on that one, please, Chair.
Okay, well, we'll bring in the Chief Officer to address the issues you've raised.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, apologies that obviously was missed, I think, from the minutes and the actions last time. But we'll take that away and make sure that somebody does contact you, Councillor Richardson.
Thank you so much.
Can I just clarify? We've just moved the May minutes, but Councillor Richardson said March. So was it the May minutes that we're referring to?
March, that was the last one.
Okay.
Oh, no, it wasn't. Well, we've not had one since then.
Okay. Thank you. Councillor Parkhurst.
Yeah, Diolch, Chair. In the last meeting's forward work programme, there was an item on the Communities for Work programme, but that seems to have disappeared from the current forward work programme. So I'm interested to know where that's gone and what the intention is. And then regarding the item on fly tipping, will that include the review of the Queensferry fly tipping issue that occurred? And also I note that there is nothing on the Sinfight fire review. Now, I believe this is scheduled in the CROSC committee for a report, but I'm just wondering that it seems to be a sort of suitable area for this committee to consider. And then finally, on page 19, there is reference to potholes. It says completed, but it doesn't appear on the forward work programme as requested. So I'm wondering where that's gone, or maybe it's included in the HAMP review in November. I would just appreciate the officers' thoughts, please. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Can I bring in Margaret?
Yeah, I did confirm when we were going through the forward work programme that was included in the HAMP report. Thank you.
So the potholes will be included in the November HAMP report. Councillor.
Yeah, just as an update, not everything does seem to be on the forward work programme. There's also placemaking plans to come as well, which I think are scheduled. I think they're scheduled for the 11th of November. So we're just waiting for the final bits of information to come through. So we'll either for July or later this year. That's for Flint and Mould, the last 2 placemaking plans. The Communities for Work programme, we have updates. We've been having updates on that, so there probably is another one to come at some stage, but it's not actually down on the programme and dated. So it's perhaps something we can chase up. Thank you.
Okay, can I ask the issue that Councillor Parker has raised about synthite? Who will address that one?
Can I just come in on that one as well? That is within the terms of reference of CROSC, and it comes under their emergency planning. So that is, I think, already scheduled on their forward work programme, but we can double check on that for you, Chair.
Okay. Okay, did that address the questions, Councillor Parkhurst?
Yes, I think so, Chair. It's just that the fly tipping, presumably that's also, as well as the synthite fire, is also on CROSC. So just seems to be some sort of overlap with this committee, and I just want to make sure that it doesn't fall between the cracks. Thank you.
Okay, I'll just bring back the Chief Officer.
Yeah, in terms of my understanding is the Queensferry fly tipping would be dealt with the same way as the synthite fire. So it would go to CROSC. It won't be included in the enforcement policy and fly tipping enforcement that we're responsible for. So it would be separate.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Richardson, you've still got your hand up. Is it something else or? No, it's gone now. Councillor Biddle.
Sorry, yes, Chair, it is additional, yeah.
Okay, Councillor Richardson, do you want to come in with that?
Yeah, it's regarding the forward work plan. I was a member of the school parking task and finish group. We haven't had a meeting for, I would guess, maybe a year or so. I was just wondering, has that fallen by the wayside? If it has, can we put it back on somewhere, please?
Okay, can I bring Chief Officer in?
Yeah, I can circulate the report again, but we took a report, I think we brought it to this committee in July last year, and then it went to Cabinet for approval. So there's an agreed protocol in place now. We adopted that protocol back in July. So the work of the task and finish group is now complete, and the proposals were implemented. Just to give you a bit of an update, we've got about a dozen schools going through the process at the moment. Obviously that takes quite a lot of officer time because we're having to do road safety assessments and so on and work with the schools. So we are working through the protocol with each individual school at the moment. So yeah, so as far as I'm concerned, the decisions and the proposals have been implemented.
Okay,
sorry, Katie. I may have misunderstood what you said. Are you saying that the school parking task and finish group is now actually ceased? It's finished. It's closed.
That's correct. Yeah.
Okay, that was news to me. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Biddle.
Yeah, just in case anybody thinks that the synthite issue has dropped off the table, as it were. We had a meeting last week with David Fitzsimmons and with Sian Jones, for example, relating to this particular issue, asking for an update. Local members are concerned about that, and indeed neighbouring local members are concerned about it too. And we've been awaiting now for nearly 2 years for the report, over 2 years for the report, and we're still waiting. But there will be an update on that, and again, I think we'll be taking that particular issue again to the town council in Mould. We're also concerned about this particular issue. I'm a member of the Works Liaison Committee, and again, the issue has been raised both in the meeting that we held in December and 12 months last December too. And NRW were present at that. Again, they were given a short, almost complete, but not yet. They said we're still waiting for that particular report. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that. Any other comments for Councillor Pearce?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Can we have a look at the road resurfacing programme? Not being parochial, we have submitted in the ward.
That will come as part of HAMP in November, won't it?
I don't know. I don't know what.
Highway Asset Management Plan. I think the Chief Officer's nodding that it will come as part of the HAMP presentation in November.
Okay. Can I request then that the programme is presented as a programme with the locations and the dates planned, because I'm not sure whether previously requested assistance has been picked up or not. I keep getting told it's next year, it's next year, it's next year. So I think we just need some visibility as part of that HAMP in November. So I'll make a note of that. Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, that's no problem. It's part of HAMP. So we bring you annual status reports on carriageways, footways, structures each year, street lighting as well, and other assets. So that forms the basis of our programme for treatment each year. And it depends obviously on the funding we're allocated. We, as you know, we need, I think it's 5.3 million to maintain the condition of the current network in the steady state. We have about £2 million. So we have to obviously prioritise which roads are treated first. The programme is published on the website. So we're about to publish this year's programme. Last year's is still on the website, I believe. So you can see the list of locations and roads, and each individual ward member is contacted by the officers as well to advise them of any roads in their wards that are being treated as well. So it is visible and it is out there on the website. We also normally issue a press statement at the time as well.
Yeah, could you provide a link to members where it is on the website, please? I've been looking, I couldn't find it.
Okay, thank you for that. Councillor Wakeham.
Thank you, Chair. Just wondering if is it possible to get an update on the VAS sign replacement, where we're up to, and because I know some wards have got nice new ones and others have still got a signpost with a bin bag on it in several areas. And just to reiterate what Councillor Pearce said, the 40/30 mile, the new legislation from Welsh Government, is there any more update? Because I've been waiting, well, 3 years, and then the 20 mile an hour came in. And then now I've been waiting 3 years to try and solve a big problem in my ward where there's been 8 really bad crashes in the last 3 years, down to speeding.
Okay, Katie?
Yeah, no problem at all. The VAS sign replacements, we've got a programme going on at the moment there. You'll start to see them appearing in more areas. So it's ongoing. In terms of specific locations, we'll ask the team to give a bit of an idea to members where we're up to in terms of that programme. But yeah, it is ongoing, so you'll start to see them more and more. In terms of the legislative update for speed limits, at the moment, obviously it was paused because of the pre-election period. And we don't know what the priorities of the new government are yet, so we're waiting to hear where that sits in terms of their priorities. So at the moment, we don't know. As soon as if we do find something out, we'll let you know. But it's no news at the moment, unfortunately.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Rose.
Thank you. Would we be able to add an update on the footpaths network? There's several footpaths that have been blocked more rurally, and the stiles have been disintegrated within Flintshire. I'd just like an update as to where we are, what figures of the network we know are blocked, and what versions are planned to replace or correct those.
Okay, I think the team, I think Councillor Dolphin will agree that with the team that do these on the rights of way, doing a relatively good job with the thing. And if they want to give a presentation, I'm sure he'd be welcome to it. Councillor Dolphin.
Yeah, I'm sure Councillor Rose knows that we have a very small team in Flintshire. Everybody knows that. Basically repairing and renewing footpaths as much as they can. And they do a tremendous job under a strain of not having enough people and enough money to do the work they want to do. But to have it come to this Environment Committee and have an update, I'm sure that'd be welcomed by the department to explain the good works they do. Thank you.
Okay, I think that's fine, Councillor Rose. We recently seen a presentation from them. It was very good, and be good for them to come and present that here. So we'll put that on. Councillor Pearce, you want to come back?
Yeah, but Councillor Wickham mentioned about road signage and speed limits. I don't know whether this is part of HAMP, but there are a number of speed limit signs and other signs that are completely obscured by foliage and trees growing out. Particularly, it's in Councillor Wakeland's ward, going from Pennymoney down the Pennyford bypass. I think the black sign with the white sign with a black stripe is completely obliterated. I know it's there because I travel that route quite often, but that's just one example. And also the state of some of the signs, they're that dirty that you know, I'm sure the legislation says that, you know, they must be in a reasonable condition. So I think that's just one example, but I think maybe if the area coordinator, as he goes round, can log these. I don't think we need it as a forward work programme, but I think it's just something we need to monitor.
Yeah, that's exactly right. We'd ask members to go straight to the area coordinators so that they can pick those things up in inspections. Obviously, overgrown foliage and vegetation is quite hard because they can't be there everywhere. But what if you do notice things when you're out and about in your wards, then please contact your area coordinators and they can carry out an ad hoc inspection then and instruct the work. That's fine.
Okay, thank you for that. Anything else on the forward work programme or action tracking? If not, then we'll move to the recommendations on page 11. The committee consider the draft work programme and approve, amend as necessary. I think there's quite a few amendments on that one. And the facility in consultation with the chair and the committee be authorised to vary the forward work programme between meetings as the need arises. And the committee notes the progress made in completing the outstanding actions. Can I have a mover? Thank you. And a seconder? And a show of hands, all those in favour? That's carried. Thank you very much. Moving on to agenda item 8, which is the Flintshire bus franchising update and next steps. I'll hand over to the Chief Officer first.
Okay, good morning, Bore da, everybody. If I could introduce Helen Telford as well. Helen's online. Helen is our Integrated Transport Unit Manager, and Helen will be taking you through the report. I just to give you a bit of an update, I can give you a brief overview. We last brought you a report in November to outline Welsh Government's plans for bus franchising across Wales. And we gave you a bit of an update on the proposals, what that might look like, and sought support to advance to the next phase, which includes the detailed planning of the network and the commencement of stakeholder and public engagement activities. So this report is exactly around that. What I may need to do, there is a hyperlink within the report. I may need to share the map on the screen, just in case members can't access that, because I am aware that a few people have not been able to access the link easily on their iPads. So I will share the map. There is also a correction to the report in the recommendations. It does state cabinet, which it shouldn't do. It should say scrutiny. So we're proposing to change the recommendation to say, if the committee agrees, scrutiny to support the proposed approach and comment on the base network. So those are the main changes to the recommendations. But I'll hand over to Helen now, and I will share the map. I don't know when you want me to share it. If you want me to share it now or as Helen's talking, I'll be led by yourselves. Thank you.
Good morning. Thank you. Yes, so this report is seeking approval for Transport for Wales to take the draft base bus network to public engagement as part of developing the bus franchising programme for North Wales. So the base network represents Flintshire's current core network, and it's intended as a starting point for discussion rather than the final network design. So the base network focuses on key transport corridors and connections, links to towns, employment, education and health care, and overall network coverage across the county. So on that version there, the flexis are missing. So where it says Broughton Shopping Park, if you click down on there, I think can you see just where you were there, Katie? Oh, sorry, it's gone now. Oh no, that's fine. Yeah, if you clicked on the change Broughton Shopping Park to none, it picks up the flexi zones as well. So that seems to have disappeared now. Anyway, at this stage, it doesn't include any bus stops or timetables or frequencies. It's just to provide This overview of the base network will form part of the public engagement, and then once the public engagement has happened, that will then feed back into the network design that will be proposed through franchising. So Transport for Wales will be leading the engagement events this summer, starting in August with target events with various community and local groups, and then they will be holding in-person engagement sessions in Holywell, Flint and Mold during September, where members of the public can go along, view the network, give their feedback and what they would like to see going forward. So the online consultation will be using this Remix interactive mapping tool, and the public engagement sessions, as I mentioned, and there'll be stakeholder discussions. So this, as I said, this network, it does reflect the current network, with just a slight change to the F18 and F19, just where service between Prestatyn and Rhyl has been withdrawn or would be suggested to be withdrawn, but those services are covered by it's frequent services with the 11 service anyway, so they wouldn't be, because there's no sort of commercial requirement for vehicles to, for bus operators to compete with each other, and Transport for Wales will put that network on. There'll be no need for those additional crossover services in those areas. And so the next steps are to approve the draft base work, and just to understand that it is not an approval of the final network. It's just to start public engagement. And then following the engagement sessions, feedback will be reviewed, further network developments will take place, and any additional decisions will be brought through the process, brought back through the committee cycle for approval before being implemented as part of the actual franchising packages. Thank you.
Okay, Chief Officer.
Yeah, to add, thanks Helen. To add to what Helen said as well, this report is a similar report to other reports that are doing the rounds across North Wales at the moment. So all the other local authorities are presenting similar reports and similar maps in their areas. They've all the maps all reflect the base network in all those different counties as well. We've tried to reflect the core bus network that this committee supported some time ago. So it broadly reflects, the same routes as we have currently and what was approved at that time. As Helen says, it doesn't go down to bus stop level or down to individual timetables and frequencies at this stage. It's just making sure that have we covered all the areas we need to cover for Flintshire? Have they all broadly got the services we need? So obviously we put subsidies in ourselves from Flintshire. It's about just over £500,000, and then that's topped up with Welsh Government grants. We're aware that if we were to cut that subsidy, then it potentially could affect what funding we get in the future from Welsh Government. So I would give it a bit of a health warning, because every time we're asked to make reductions to budgets, it's one of the budgets that is looked at each year. It is a discretionary budget for bus subsidies, because legally we don't have to provide financial support for bus services. So it is one of the ones that is put forward each year. But by the same token, it could impact what the franchise network looks like in Flintshire in the future if we were to reduce that funding. So it is something to bear in mind when you are commenting on the base network. And at this stage, we don't know from Welsh Government what additional funding we may be able to get. You'll remember from the last reports, we were going to consult upon what the base network looked like, what an enhanced network looked like, and then what an aspirational. But this is the base. We hope that any additional funding would enhance what we've got already. So really open to comments and questions if you know, and hopefully this will form the basis for the start of that public engagement and start to get feedback from people. We will be going around town and community councils as well. Okay.
Okay, thank you very much. Councillor Wakeland. So, okay, Councillor Peters.
Okay, right. Thank you for that. Yep, very interesting. Right, so you've explained that the base network is the current core network. Are we saying that this will be the minimum provision? Yep. So none of these will be reduced in any way. So that's good news in that respect. Then I noticed that yeah, the established routes. Then you talked about bus stops, etc., haven't been decided, but if we're sticking with the current routes, it'll follow that the existing bus stops will stay there. I would hope and expect. On on 106, I think it talks about the the remix, which is the plan, and then further on we have appendix 1. Now that is called, this is in section 501, this is called prioritized service interventions. Now I don't know what that is, it's not in the glossary. When you look at appendix 1, all it lists is services beginning with F. They're all F services. So if you're taking this out to the public, I think we need to explain what we're talking about, because to be honest, I don't know what your prioritized service interventions are, and Helen didn't mention it during her comments. I don't think she did, but I'm just trying to understand what are these prioritized service interventions. You've demonstrated the base program with the core routes as the minimum provision. I don't know what the service interventions are, but when I look at appendix 1, and on page 28, the bottom line there is called the mold hub, and it says various interurban services hourly or every 2 hourly. Now again, I don't know whether this is just linked into the prioritized service interventions or whether that is linked into the current base network. It is totally confusing. I'm sorry to say that. I think on the committee we're trying to make it a bit more simple. If this is going to go out for consultation, people need to know what they're looking at. So with the appendix 1 and the prioritized service interventions, I don't know what they are, so I think that can be explained. And I think that I was looking, you did mention the F18 and 19 was withdrawn, but you have said that that's covered by the number 11. What we haven't had presented is the franchise model itself. How will it work? Because at the moment, obviously the main operator is Arriva, and there'll be some local operators. I don't know whether Lloyd's is still operating. They don't operate in our area. But I was just wondering, will the slate be cleaned, and under the new arrangements of franchising, they will have to bid for those? So if we take the number 11, which I think is Arriva at the moment, going from Chester, Holywell to Rill, in the future that could be someone else. And we have the bus running from Corwin to Chester, all that's part of it as well. Okay, so going forward then, I think I can support this to go out, but I think we need some clarifications and further understanding of what are the prioritised service interventions and what is Appendix 1 telling us, because apart from all the F buses there's no other existing bus routes that's included in the base plan part of that. So I think if we are going to take this forward to the public, and certainly feedback for Cabinet, we need to make it a lot clearer. Thank you.
Yeah, I can explain it a little bit. So we have got another report coming to you next month about the investment zone, and obviously that's going on separately, but it's running concurrently, really, at the same time. So the table in Appendix 1 is some of the enhancements we're seeking to implement as part of the investment zone funding, which would enhance what we've got here slightly. So we thought it was useful to include those so you could see those as well. But there is a specific report coming to you next month. Maybe we'll tweak this report before it goes forward to Cabinet to explain what this table relates to. So at least they can see that as well. So we can certainly make it clearer within the report. You asked about bus stops and changes. At this stage, it's not really known whether there will be any bus stop changes at this stage. It's too early to tell. Potentially there could be additional bus stops. There may be some that are redundant. We don't know until we get further down the line, unfortunately, in terms of the consultation. In terms of the franchise model, and I might bring Helen in a little bit because she's been more involved on a regular basis with Transport for Wales. But my understanding is all the routes will be packaged up. So you might have some larger packages for some of the larger companies like the PLCs, and then you'll have smaller packages of routes which will be more for family bus coach operator type operators, the SMEs. So my understanding is that's how they're going to package things up across Wales. It's not just North Wales. South West Wales is the first to go next year. We follow in 2028, and then the other two regions follow us after that. So we're second, but 2028 is the date that they're aiming for franchising.
Okay, thank you for that. Councillor Pearce.
Yeah, thank you for the explanation, Kate. Yeah, I think that's, I don't know whether that Appendix 1 was relevant to this report. It sort of distracted from it. You did mention about there may be redundant bus stops. There are a lot around the town already where we have redundant bus stops. A bus hasn't run there for years. And in fact, today we had some road works, and the people doing the roads actually put up a sign for a temporary bus stop for a bus stop that doesn't exist. So we have these anomalies. And also, if I can just mention that we've got redundant bus shelters as well that could be repurposed, I think. But I think, thank you for the explanation on the Appendix 1. But I think if there is going to be a separate report on investments, I think this should have been part of that. It sort of detracted. But for the minutes, though, for today, could we note then that the base network will be the minimum provision? If we can log that down as a minuted item, please. I'd appreciate that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Just to say, if you zoom in as far as you can go on this map, it does show you the existing bus stops. They are there. There's little grey dots on the side. So, but like you say, there are a lot of redundant bus stops about at the moment. Councillor Wakeman.
Thank you, Chair. I feel like a stuck record when I talk about this, but my ward, since that horrible word COVID, has grown by over almost 25%. They even built a bus stop as one of the parts of one of the biggest developments in the ward in a long time. That isn't used, hasn't got a bus. Well over 5,000 people in the ward now, and if you see on the map, we have one bus that goes through. That is the 29. You can't get to Mold before 10. You can get to Wrexham just before 9 o'clock, and if you've got a job in Wrexham, you can run really fast to get to it. If you're lucky enough to start at 9 o'clock, you can't get home from Mold after 4, and you can't get home from Wrexham after 5:30. There is a T8 from Ruthin, but for some, well, the majority of the residents, elderly residents using the buses, it's for some of them a 1.5 mile walk to the bus stop, which is uphill. It's downhill on the way back when you've got all your shopping, but the flexi bus isn't viable for a job. The time gaps are too open. It's the people that have tried to use it said it's not consistent enough to be able to get to work on time. We've met with Arriva many times. They say their data doesn't support the need for a bus, but they did their data in COVID when nobody was using buses. Any support for my ward would be amazing. There are lots of people who want to work in Chester. The last big development in the village, well, the last 3 developments in the village, all of their literature said excellent connections to Chester and beyond if you have a car. If you have a bus, need, even a train, it's not there. Any help, please, would be great.
Okay, thank you very much, Councillor Wakeland. Councillor Healy.
Thank you very much, Chair. I think Councillor Wakeland has put his finger on a big problem as far as the isolation of several rural communities concerned. And I think what is important in going beyond this base network is that I would hope with the investment zone funding that in order to get people to the places of employment from the rural communities, that funding, it does something to really reach out and to make additional provision to make that possible. But also, you do talk about, in addition to the issues of education, health and employment, which is covered to some extent by this, the document does make reference to aspirational aspects of the network. And I would fully support what Councillor Wakeland was saying about this link to Chester, which I know there has been the T8 that goes from Ruthin to Chester, and the people of Pennyford were hoping that that would be diverted so that it could actually come closer than 1.5 miles or wherever to Pennyford itself. I will say in some of the other parts of South Flintshire, we were similarly had high hopes that the T8 could actually link us to Chester from Hope, Caergurley, and even I think some of the places up Hope Mountain towards Llanfonydd and so forth. But that is an absolute pipe dream, and it's not realistic because Transport for Wales has basically said the driver would be in the seat and at the wheel for too long, and that this can't happen. What we did have in the past that provided a link for these communities to Chester, which is desirable from a leisure recreational point of view, is that we did have the bus called the DB1, which I think probably went through Pennyford as well, but it certainly linked the various communities within the rural parts of South Flintshire that are cut off from Chester. But that wasn't viable, and it's no longer happens. It no longer exists. But I would hope with this bus franchising, what we're able to achieve is that those areas that are profitable will subsidize those areas that are not profitable. And we will overcome the problem that's been with us since the 1980s of deregulation of bus services, which really meant that people, particularly in rural communities, found themselves isolated and without a service. So I do hope that what Welsh Government is doing with bus franchising will help to overcome those problems that have been created by that particular bit of legislation. And I would support and flag up the idea of linking South Flintshire and Pennyford as well included to more directly to Chester for the purposes of recreation, leisure and so forth.
Okay, thank you very much, Councillor Healy. Councillor Richardson.
Thank you, Chair. It's I notice for the public engagement, the meetings, I think I got it right, they were in Flint, Holywell and Mould. When you look at the size of the towns in Flintshire, Connors Quay's the biggest, Buckley's the second biggest. I understand there is a small bus station at Holywell and there was one at Mould. I don't know if there still is, but living in Connors Quay, Shotton, Queen's Ferry, and the the huge development that's going on in Garden City, we often get asked, why is there no public engagement for us? So could I just have it minuted that requested? Could we have public engagement in the biggest town in Connors Quay, please?
Can I come in on that? That engagement will take place as part of the investment zone enhancements, which are included in this, which is the Appendix 1, but will come as part of another report. So that public engagement will be much more targeted, as there will be a lot more interventions focusing on that area.
Sorry, do you mean this side of the river or the other side of the river?
That Connors Quay D-side area will be involved in public engagement as part of the investment zone additional funding.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you for that. Councillor Andrew Parkhurst.
Yeah, yeah, like Councillor Pearce, I was a bit confused by Appendix 1. I understand it to now be enhancements regarding the investment zone, so I think that clarifies it, but it does need to be made clearer. I think there's a description of it being prioritised service interventions, which doesn't mean much to the layperson. My particular concern is about the protection and enhancement of rural bus services, as others have said. There is reference on page 27 to return on investment. I don't know how return on investment is calculated for rural services where there are sort of vulnerable users but not huge numbers of them. And on page 30, there's reference to the constrained capacity of Mould bus station. I'd just like to make the point, but I don't think that should be a limiting factor. There ought to be ways of increasing capacity there, so that shouldn't be a block on further enhancements to the service. And the rural bus services, often mean that people may be able to get to work, but they can't get home again. There's a reference to an hourly or 2-hourly service on page 28. Well, many villages would absolutely love an hourly or 2-hourly service, and that just doesn't exist. And then finally, I do really welcome the engagement that is scheduled to take place. I note from a chief officer that this will include town and community councils, and that it will involve in-person events as well as online, because the online remix internet basis is not really very user-friendly for those who have limited internet experience, particularly the elderly. So the in-person engagement is very welcomed, and I hope that it's not just a matter of numbers of participants, but the sort of value of the input that they provide. Diolch, Chair.
Okay, thank you very much for that, Councillor Parkhurst. Councillor Rose.
Thank you. Yeah, similar to others, I was a bit confused by some of the things. I think one of the things that also confused me straight away was the use of base map. And I was comparing that to the base position, when actually this is the core network, essentially, is what this is mapping out, isn't it? I think from Remix as well, it wasn't clear from this map that this is actually the tool that will be used to comment and things, as the usability isn't active to actually click and comment within areas. So to say this tool can go forward, it's not actually live enough for us to see how it works to say whether there's any issues. I think again, there's a couple of things. The area highlighted above the national landscape isn't clear what that's linked to. When you link it in the field on the right, you've got drop downs to say what those areas are, whereas that one doesn't actually get removed when you unclick any of the areas. The highlighted area below that, the blue blob, that one doesn't look to be linked to anything, so I don't know whether that's correct or not.
I think it's a Denbighshire service, to be fair.
Okay, that
Yeah.
would make sense. Well, that's
Yeah.
obviously showing on a
Yeah.
Flintshire map, so that's going to be quite confusing. I think the other side of it is the detail of the engagement itself. If Transport for Wales are doing the engagement, we haven't got the information itself as to what that engagement is looking like, where they're doing it, how many hours are they spending it, what are the key places they're going to do it, and how do people who aren't able to get to those things actually reach out to do it if they don't have an internet connection, and how are they getting to those people? I think that's for me the area that is a concern. Obviously Transport for Wales, if they're doing this on a larger basis, not just in Flintshire, that's a hell of a lot of resource. I'm not sure we have the detail as to how that's actually being actioned. So that would be interesting to see in terms of what they're doing it, as well as understanding what their next steps are. Obviously, the three positions that we had, we as a committee supported the aspirational position. When does that flow into this? Obviously, we've got a limited timescale as to when it's being implemented. And that is going to be one of the areas where there's going to be a lot of more work needed. How long until they do the consultation about any of the aspirational requests that could possibly come forward, along with the impact and possibility of a municipal bus company? That would require some work to do. And if we're going to bring this network forward in 2028, having that set up in advance of that is obviously would be a longer term benefit for the finances of Flintshire. We're talking about profits subsidizing things if we're still using franchise partners. If Arriva are still doing the majority of the network, they've got a 242.46 billion euro revenue with 156 million euro profits. That is the area that this franchising was hopefully able to look at closer. At what point do Transport for Wales bring that into their consultation and look towards that as well? I think that's what I'd more like to know. So whether it's worthwhile as getting Transport for Wales in to explain to us what the long-term plan is they've got and the processes they're planning to do, that might be more beneficial, so we understand the longer term idea for this. Thanks.
Thank you. I'll bring in the Chief Officer.
Yeah, we can certainly feed that back, Councillor Rose, to TFW, but we did hold, I think it was late February, early March, some drop-in events that Transport for Wales attended, and they were specifically for members to come in and speak to Transport for Wales about the proposals and about bus franchising. I have to say they were quite poorly attended, even though we did publicise them through this committee. Happy to put those on again if you feel that would be beneficial. But we do need people to attend those sessions. In terms of the aspirational network, obviously the consultation is only about the base network because that's the minimum provision we can afford based on the funding that's available at the moment. In how long it'll take to start building that up and work to a more enhanced network will depend on passenger usage, Welsh Government funding. So it's a bit of an unknown at this stage, unfortunately. That is where we all want to get to. But how long it'll take I don't think anybody can answer that at the moment, because we've been advised that the level of funding available is the same as what we've got now. So unless we have additional funding, it's going to be very difficult to enhance it at the moment. So, but that is exactly what we are aiming for eventually, as it grows. But it's how long is a piece of string at the moment? We just don't know, unfortunately.
Okay, thank you very much for that. Councillor Bethel.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I'm pleased to receive the report, and particularly the aspects relating to transport to the enterprise zone. We've commented on this in the past, really, about young people particularly getting jobs and can't access that particular employment zone. And that's important really for them, really, that they have that. I'm just wondering to what extent the shift patterns coincide, because again, you know, not all firms have the same shift patterns. I don't know whether that's been looked into in any detail or whether that can be overcome in any way to ensure that you know, people do access it even when buses are put on there for them. The other issue, you know, it's a long-standing issue of mine that you will recall, Chair, is in relation to bus timetables. You know, very often these are not shown in bus stops and so on. And again, with the best will of the world, the best plans of the world, this is not going to succeed unless it's well publicised and people know they can access a particular bus on that point. Again, some of them are not local people. They may well be out walking, for example, and can't make the end of the walk that they intend to do. And a bus timetable is very handy. It enables them to actually access a bus to continue the remains of their journey. So, you know, those are necessary. And again, you know, people who well use the buses in my particular ward, people who don't have a car and deliberately don't have a car, comment on this regularly, that many of the bus stops don't have timetables, and those that do are not up to date. And without that particular provision, you know, as I say, this is hopeless and it will not work and it will be a waste of time and money. In relation to money and the budget implications there's no specific budget for this. Will we be able to cope with the financial demands that this will result in as a council? Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that. I think, as Katie said, it's the same budget for.
I can come in again. Yeah, I mean, there is no additional funding for this at this stage. As I mentioned at the start when we presented the report, we put in about £500,000. That's topped up with the equivalent from Welsh Government. So there is no, you know, as far as I'm aware at this stage, there's no additional funding. So the base network is based on our current levels of funding. And as Councillor Pearce, it's the minimum provision we're seeking to provide. Obviously, if we get additional funding, things like the investment zone or any other additional funding, and as you know, hopefully passenger numbers grow and the fare box revenue increases, then that can be reinvested. But at the moment, I can't put a timescale on that. It's very difficult to know. I'll bring Helen in if it's okay on the bus timetable information, because I think there are plans around that as well with Transport for Wales.
Yeah, there's essentially going to be programs around bringing in real-time information where possible. There'll be obviously quite a few technical versions of things like QR codes where you can get real-time information on your phones, and then there's a bus stop audit happening at the moment where that will feed into our works and programs to improving bus stop infrastructure. And again, it's offers a resource really regarding updating timetables. But hopefully, once Transport for Wales has come in and everything's more settled, then timetables can start to be updated and remain in place. But officer resources is quite limited to keep on top of those at the moment. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Could just have a comment on the shift patterns and so on, and the enterprise zone, and the you know, enabling people to actually use that facility to get to and from work.
Yeah, the interventions, as I say, they will be brought part as part of the other report that specifically about investment zone funding, but those service enhancements, a lot of them involve retiming and have considered shift patterns as part of that retiming to support those.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Glynbanks.
Thank you, Chair. First of all, with Transport for Wales, I mean, I always mention this in every meeting I go into. We want what South Wales have had. That's what we want. I mean, we're getting the base position here. I mean, go and take a look at what they're getting or what they've got in South Wales and what they're getting. It is chalk and cheese, the difference between what we're getting here. So we want a bit more of the pie of what they're getting down there. And bus, as Chief Officer's mentioned, the bus network grant, that is most definitely tied in with our contribution to that. So we really, you know, because further down the line, obviously everyone's going to be discussing budgets. We cannot afford to lose a penny of that, because everything we take out of that, you'll probably lose double out of the bus network grant off the Welsh Government. So we need more money putting into the bus service support grants. But yeah, like I say, for myself, a lot of this ties in with the investment zone and the success of it. That investment zone is a once in a lifetime opportunity for this county and beyond. And obviously, I mentioned this in a meeting with TFW as well, about the fact of we've got to be realistic, not for the fact of just what we've got here. We've got a much less population here than some of our neighbours, and a lot of what has to be done has got to be attracting them as well to this investment zone, because if you can't attract the right people there, you're not going to attract. It's all a build it and they will come sort of thing with the network. And it's as for engagements, I've got to applaud Flintshire, because if it was just down to Transport for Wales, this would have been a whole lot more online than it is going to be public now because of Flintshire, and which is great. Obviously, you can't put one on every little where, but that's where we come in as councillors, isn't it? You know, we do our talks with our town and community councils. We rally the troops, as I would say, and then we speak as one for our sections, like you know, yourself. You'd get everyone on board and then put the view forward. You've got 5,000 people there. If they all put something forward about they're going to use it, then they would do. But just lastly, on the free positions, we are at the bare position, base position. I put bare here, sorry, but it's basically, you could call it the bare position. The investment zone one, obviously, this is where I see a bit of light at the end of the tunnel, and this is with the business rate retention. And I mean, in future, you know, we do want something like what they've got in Manchester, but you need more business rate retention to be able to do that. If you haven't got that funding coming in, you're never going to reach this aspirational, what they want. The Welsh government set it before. I'm guessing that the applied governments will be on a very similar line, or even more, wanting that aspirational position, but we'll never get there without their funding. Thanks, Chair.
Okay, thank you for that. I see no further speakers or members asking. Can I then move to page 21, the recommendation? And he's gone off. Yeah. I don't know if your report, mine did say cabinet to support, but it's a scrutiny to support the proposed approach and approve the base network as shown in the Remix platform, which is intended to be used to shape discussions and public engagement. Remover, moved, seconded.
I agree with the recommendation, but can you just confirm that the enhancements and the clarifications and making it a bit more clearer will be part of that as well? Thank you.
Katie, do you want to?
Yeah, absolutely. Yes, they will. And also, I think we did change the wording to, rather than approves, comment on. We said scrutiny supports and comments on the base network. Yeah, and then comments on the base network. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, moving on to agenda item 9, which is the proposed consultation to renew public space protection orders. If I can hand over to the Chief Officer.
Thank you, Chair. Borrowed out, pal.
Just swap mics. This one doesn't work. It's not picking you up on the screen. Can we just have a moment?
Yeah. Just wanted the speaker wasn't catching you online.
Closer to
I see. This will be cozy. How's that? On now? It's on. Button's on. A rose between two thorns. How's that? Right,
You're online
okay.
now.
Thank you, Chair. Firstly, can I welcome Sian and Pete from the Community and Business Protection team, who will be walking you through this report. But I'll just give you an overview before they do. So, public space protection orders. They're an intervention to prevent antisocial behaviour, as I'm sure members will appreciate. And we currently have two within Flintshire, one at Wepper and the other at Mould Memorial Gardens. And they're a 3-year order, which will expire this October. And the orders impose restrictions on dog control and also the consumption of alcohol. Now, the proposal is to renew both orders, but to do so, you'll appreciate there's a process that we need to go through, which includes consultation. So the ask of the committee today is to endorse the proposal to renew the orders and to endorse the consultation process, and also to participate in that consultation exercise. So I'll hand over to Sian and Peter, who will run through the detail of the report for you. Thank you.
Diolch yn fawr iawn. Thank you very much. Bore da I chi. So thank you. So as the Chief Officer has just outlined, our public space protection orders, PSPOs, the dog control and alcohol come to an end at the end of October this year. If Flintshire wishes to renew the orders, then a consultation process has to commence very soon to allow for members to consider the findings in the autumn. It is a statutory process that we have to follow. And this time round, we have sought the guidance of the communications team to prepare the draft questionnaires, which appear in appendices 1 and 2 of this report. As mentioned by the Chief Officer, the prohibitions imposed by the dog controlled PSPO are outlined in the executive summary of this report, and also in paragraph 1.4 of this report as well. And we are seeking to consult with a view of renewing the order in its current format, albeit at the end of that consultation period, it may well be that members wish to amend the order as it stands currently until the 29th of October. With regard to the alcohol PSPO, the order allows designated officers, and in this case it's police officers, the power to ask members of the public to surrender alcohol if they deem it to be causing a nuisance in public areas. Licensed premises, I should note, are not included under this order. And with respect to the dog control order, the enforcement is undertaken by the civil parking and environmental enforcement team that sit within Katie's area. And details of the activities they have undertaken, and they've undertaken a considerable amount of work, are detailed in paragraph 1.5 of this report, and that just covers the period from April 2023 to March 2026. So in terms of the approach to the consultation, we intend to follow similar lines to previous years, albeit I think it's fair to say that we constantly learn and we reflect on what's worked and what hasn't worked previously. But this time round it will be an engagement process through an online survey using our social media platforms and our website using the SurveyMonkey software, which will be run by
corporate communications. We have also lined up, we've sought agreement and clarification from the Connect offices and also from libraries as well, who come under Gwella, that should members of the public need support to complete the report, the questionnaire, then they will be happy to assist with that process as well. We are a significantly reduced team from the team that you saw three years ago. Pete now is the lead for community safety, and it's a very small team, I think it's fair to say. So that's the reason why we won't be accepting paper copies. The communications team, as I said, as I mentioned at the start, have updated the questionnaires. And just sort of with respect to what will be included in the questionnaires, what you have before you in your report pack is the word download from the SurveyMonkey questionnaire. So it's not going to look like that as you're completing it online. One question will lead to another, if you see what I mean. And in terms of the the screening questions, the about you section of the questionnaires, these are first of all entirely voluntary. These are the standard questions that you would find in any corporate questionnaire that is sent out, and the only, I think, mandatory question that's asked is about age. We will as well be including, where there is specific reference to the prohibitions around the Rosie Pool and also Mould Memorial Gardens, we will be including maps to denote those areas to, for the sake of clarification. Again, this is something that we've learnt from last time round. And we've included as well, just to confirm the location with respect to Mould Memorial Gardens. Now, I've referenced in the questionnaire Mould Memorial Gardens, sometimes known as Mould Ornamental Gardens. I am advised by Katie that following a recent meeting with Mould Town Council, their preference is for Mould Memorial Gardens to be known as the Flower Gardens. We're happy, I can make that change before we commence, so I can reflect that as well. And I might just put ornamental as a footnote in addition. So in a sense, you know, we'd be really keen for members to be promoting engagement in this process, and we will be writing out to a number of key stakeholders, statutory stakeholders as well, which includes town and community councils. And we're happy to take any questions, and also any, we can accommodate any minor amendments to the questionnaires as well. Thank you very much. Diolch fawr iawn.
Okay, thank you, Sean. And first off is Councillor Parkhurst.
Yeah, diolch, Chair, and diolch, Sean, as well for your report. I'm sure we'll all be conscious of the unfortunate situation which arose with regard to the Mould Ornamental Gardens dog banning order, when the views of the town council were perhaps sort of misunderstood, and resulted in a lot of local upset where, you know, perfectly law-abiding elderly people were deprived of the ability to exercise their dogs in the peace and quiet of the ornamental gardens. So I hope that the lessons, you know, will be learned from that consultation 3 years ago, because it did seem to fall short, certainly in the eyes of the public, in several respects. You know, one of those one of those respects is the name of the gardens. I note that you're receptive to calling the gardens the ornamental gardens. This is the term that I believe the gardens are known as locally, and I find no memorial in the gardens to which which would support calling them the memorial gardens. And last time this did cause some confusion, so I hope that the term ornamental gardens will be widely accepted. One aspect which concerns me, particularly from what you said, Sian, is that you're not accepting paper copies. Now, many of the people who use the gardens will be elderly, and I note that help will be provided at the Connect centres and libraries to use the internet, but really, I think this is not on, and I would push back very strongly that there ought to be the facility to have paper copies. We know from the schools consultation that there have been legal challenges which have called into question the validity of the consultation. We don't want to go down that route with this. We want an easy path, straightforward, people's views are respected, and those who have views they want to express can do so in a manner which is easy for them. So I would please ask you to reconsider not accepting paper copies. And then sort of finally, I'd like to refer to page 34, where there's various sort of figures on the number of locations where the wardens have it inspected. And it seems to work out at about 1.7 locations per officer per patrol day, which doesn't seem a huge amount. And I'm just wondering if you're sure that we are getting value for money for that. Diolch, Chair.
Okay, thank you, Sian.
Thank you very much, Councillor Parkhurst. I can assure you I certainly share your wish that this is a transparent, straightforward consultation process, and hopefully in the way that the questions have been written, and we've sought sort of advice from the communications team about making sure that plain English is used as well, that is reflected. Just going back to your first point about reference to the name of Memorial Gardens, because it's Memorial Gardens, that's actually in the order itself. That is that is what we have to consult on. However, and I will have to take legal advice on this. Thereafter, there may be an opportunity when the new order is signed, and we can't presuppose the consultation, that there might be a possibility to change the name, but I will have to seek legal advice. More than happy to include ornamental gardens in the questionnaire. My reference to the flower gardens earlier on was merely a reflection of a conversation with the Chief Officer, and Councillor Bithell, as a member of Mold Town Council, may also have a view on that. I can include all three if that's helpful. That's absolutely fine by us. The question with regard, valid question around paper copies. I mean, I'm happy to have a conversation with the Chief Officer about that. This is us. It's myself and Pete in terms of supporting this process, and we have a number of other areas. This is only a very small part of our remit of work, so I will have a discussion with the Chief Officer outside of the meeting to look at whether it's possible to accommodate, or indeed other work might have to be reprioritised. So I think that's probably something to take outside of this meeting. With respect to the enforcement question, I think I'm best directing that towards Katie, because enforcement sits within her area. We undertake the administration of this process, but it's Katie's team who undertake the work, albeit it's a small team that I think covers a very wide area. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Katie? Do you want...
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, so in terms of the enforcement team, obviously it's a multifunctional team. They cover, not just the PSPO, and they work over a 7-day period as well. So they are required to work out of hours at times as well, depending on the needs that, in any particular week. So generally, in terms of the PSPOs, we only have 1 or 2 officers per day working on the PSPOs. We've got 6 officers currently in post, so 6 over 7 days doesn't go very far, unfortunately. We are carrying some vacancies at the moment, which we are out to recruitment for, but it is historically it's a hard to recruit to post. We don't attract, unfortunately, because of the pay. So that is an issue for us. So that we are looking at that separately, but. They do, they enforce not just for dog fouling and the PSPOs, but they do excess waste, they do abandoned vehicles, civil parking enforcement for car parks, other environmental things like fly tipping as well. We will be bringing obviously the report next month, so you'll have a more detailed report on the enforcement team at that meeting. So we'll cover all their roles in more detail there, if that's okay.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Parkhurst, did your
Yes.
question first?
Chief Officer would like to come in.
Just 1 second, Councillor Parkhurst. Chief Officer wants to come back.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for your comments, Councillor Parkhurst. And in specific relation to the paper copy issue, and I do understand that fear of digital exclusion, as it were, for more elderly people. But I think members of this committee will recall colleagues from our regeneration team presenting on the placemaking plan. And in terms of that consultation, what we actually found was the highest level of response was digitally from people over the age of 65. So I think there are certain assumptions made about digital exclusion which aren't necessarily correct. Having said that, as Shana said, we absolutely want to hear from as many people on the consultation as possible. And what we won't be doing is certainly won't be posting out paper copies of forms for consultation. And we would encourage people to go to our Connect centres and to local libraries where staff will assist people in filling out the form digitally. But I think as a compromise, what I would suggest is, as an absolute last resort, we would have some paper copies available for those who really were struggling with filling out the forms. But there is a wider kind of sustainability and carbon reduction issue here as well, isn't there, in terms of printing paper costs, ink, the whole works really. So we will be absolutely encouraging respondents to respond to us digitally, but I would be concerned about excluding anybody. So what I would suggest is, if people are having difficulty at our libraries, then as an absolute last resort, we would facilitate a paper copy. But I'd suggest that would be a last resort. So I hope that is an appropriate compromise, Councillor Parkhurst. Thanks.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Parkhurst.
Yes, thank you, Chief Officer. That's very welcome. I do appreciate that on behalf of those elderly and not so elderly who might have issues with the digital world. Can I just make one quick further point, please? That page 48, 49, one of the questions is, how often do you visit the Mould Memorial Gardens? People who were visiting until 3 years ago but aren't now visiting because they have dogs and that was the primary purpose for visiting, that really doesn't include that category. So I'm just wondering if that sentence could be expanded to include something like, or would visit if dogs were allowed. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you very much, Sean.
Yeah, I mean, I have absolutely no problem at all expanding the question. The reason why we included these questions with respect to Mould Memorial Gardens and also Rosie Pool this time round was to help members, I guess, evaluate the outcomes, the results once we receive them, for them to understand the impact on those who lived locally in particular, and those who didn't. But I mean, I have no issue in expanding the question, if that's agreeable with other members. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that. Councillor Richardson.
Thank you, Chair. I'm lucky to live right by where Wepper Park is. It's a beautiful park. Last time I was there, I was talking to a colleague of mine, and I'm aware he lives in Wigan. And but what are you doing all the way down here? And he said it's one of the only places we can come and park for free. I know that's being addressed on another subject, but while I was at the park with my granddaughter, someone approached me, recognizing me as a local councillor, and in the fenced area where the children play, there was a large dog off its lead. It's quite clear the two entrance points where you go in that dogs aren't allowed there. I noticed 2023 to 2026, 3 cases of enforcement, and I do understand that Katie's team would probably ask the dog owner to put the dog back on the lead, and if they complied, yeah, you know, I understand that is enforcing. My question is, on a Sunday afternoon in Wepper Park, and someone comes to me and says there's a dog off the lead, how do I report that? You know, sending an email is pointless for that scenario, because no one's going to read it. How do I report a dog being off its lead in that area? That's one question. And secondly, we talk, I think it works well in the Rosie, the fishing club, and then there's one other area, Mould Memorial Garden. But how about all the other play parks in Flintshire? You know, how do the other councils feel? What, you know, why is it only in Wepper Park and Mould Memorial Garden where these protection orders exist? Thank you.
Okay, thanks. I'll let Sean come in first, and then I'll bring Chief Officer in.
Okay, thank you very much. Councillor Richardson, in terms of the other areas, so if you look at section 1.4, it does, so the specific areas with prohibitions are Rosie Pool and Moll Memorial Gardens. However, there are a number of other areas and that generally apply throughout the county where there are prohibitions in place, and Katie's enforcement officers enforce all aspects, the specific areas. And because these two, and hopefully this is partially answers your question, Councillor Richardson, because we received representations to include Rosie Pool and Moll Memorial Gardens last time as part of the consultation, they then became the order. So we are consulting on the order itself. If there are specific areas, I guess, that come to the fore in the future where representations are made, it doesn't mean that they automatically are included. A case would have to be made. We would look at, statistics. We would look at number of complaints, and we would look at intelligence, local intelligence from those who are on the ground, like area coordinators, like enforcement officers, as well. So in answer to that question, prohibitions. There are certain general prohibitions that cover the county as a whole. Wepper Park, Rosie Pool and Mould Memorial Gardens are just two specific areas that have come about with specific prohibitions. So that was that question. Your question around dogs off, who would you be reporting dogs off lead to? I think probably Katie is better placed as her team undertake the enforcement there. But I think the general point would be, not with regard to the Sunday afternoon, but if you come across, or if members of your ward come across, instances of dog fouling, issues with those who are in control of their dogs, so not dangerous dogs. Dangerous dogs is for the police, but in control of their dogs, but they're off leads, and there is a concern to some extent. Then it's always about reporting to street scene via online or over the phone. But I'll hand over to Katie, who'll give you a more comprehensive answer, I'm sure.
Thank you, Sian. I'll do my best. In terms of what you reported on, how do I report a dog off the lead on a Sunday afternoon? I suppose it depends whether it's one-off or it's a persistent problem. If it's something that you're seeing regularly with people completely flouting the laws and are blatantly doing it on purpose, then we would want to know about it, because we can then target patrols for enforcement action. Our emphasis, and Councillor Richardson will know this from previous conversations, our emphasis will always be on education first, and we do give people a reasonable amount of time to either put the dogs back on the lead or pick up after themselves before we take enforcement action. I think one of those FPNs that's included in the table there is one of that's a result of a dog that was in a children's play area, so we actually did take out enforcement action in that particular instance. It wasn't the Rosie Pool or the Memorial Gardens, so we do carry out enforcement, but it is always the last resort. So I think my answer, is if it's a persistent problem and it's happening regularly, then please, let us know. Members of the public can report dog fouling on our website. There's a report it tool on there. They can phone the contact centre, or they can email the street scene email address as well. So we do have multiple ways of reporting it. And if it's a regular persistent problem, then please let us know.
Thanks, Katie. I do understand your response, but it doesn't answer the question. Saturday, Sunday in Wepper Park is probably it is the busiest time, and it's probably, I don't know how your 6 staff shifts are made up and what days they cover, but if my question still stands, whether it's persistent or a one-off. There's a dog off the lead. I'm the local councillor. People are coming up to me, Dave, there's a dog off the lead there. Where do I report it? There's nowhere to report it to. Whether you've got enforcement officers working that particular day or not is not the question. The question is, how do you report it? And to say that you have to wait till it's persistent, I don't think that's good enough, personally. Thank you.
Okay, I'll bring the chief officer back.
Yeah, I thought I just explained, you can report it on our website, so it doesn't mean that we have to be available. We don't have officers waiting on demand to come out to enforce. If we know there's evidence, and we can only act on the evidence, we're not a responsive service. It's not like calling 999. We have to have the evidence to enforce. If you've got evidence of it happening regularly and can provide that to us and report it via the methods that I've just outlined, then that gives us the evidence to demonstrate we need patrols out on a Saturday or a Sunday. Generally they work Monday to Friday, but if we know there's an issue, a regular issue that's happening all the time, and we've got the data and the evidence to prove it, we will target at those areas. But we need that evidence. But if people don't report it via the website or via the email address, then it's hard for us to respond in that case.
Okay, thank you, Katie. And can I presume then, obviously if the dog was a dangerous dog, you just ring 999? Yeah. Okay. All right. Thank you for that. I'm going to move on to Councillor Rose.
Thank you. Yeah, there's a couple of points, and I'm looking at this more of a template that will be used for any further protection orders. So 1.8, we mention specialist charities, and then give a couple of examples of national ones. we don't have on that list the local charities, be that disability forums or some of the local networks or the local community groups that may exist that would have input. Obviously, the other side of that is the large charities like Age UK. Obviously, we've said that we're not going to be posting out things, but obviously under disability regs, I believe we do have to make that available should there be a legitimate reason or requirement, be that large print and braille and things like that. So to say we're not posting out can't be written or said. I don't think that's right. The other side of it is, should we do any further protection orders? Obviously, there's some possible unintended movements or consequences in that they move, dog walkers will move from one place to other footpaths in the area, and whether that causes increased difficulties or problems there, then I wonder whether it's worth also including the likes of Bayonet and Ramblers to make certain that local other groups are aware of possible changes or movements around them as well, to give them a heads up or to put into it to say any reason or purpose why they should be against it. The other side of it is it doesn't also mention about posters on the site sort of thing to say with a QR code to say that there's a consultation going on. I think that's probably the biggest thing expected. Obviously, that's probably within the requirement anyway, but obviously it's not within this document to say that that's going to happen. And then the other side of it is obviously even with the alcohol side of it, changes within the alcohol areas. Obviously, one of the biggest litter problems is, drinks cans that I've seen in several triple SIs and all sorts all over the place. So again, that side of it being related to Bayonet, so they've got some input or awareness that changes may be happening. Other than that, I think I'm quite happy with what's there. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Sean.
Thank you very much, Councillor Rose. Yeah, absolutely. In terms of the local charities, more than happy if you have any further suggestions. If you want to email me, if that could be done within the next fortnight, that would be much appreciated. And I'm very happy to include any suggestions as part of sort of the mail shot anyway. So it will be a digital mail shot, but absolutely more than happy to do that. I will of course take advice from our equalities officer in terms of, you're right, we are obligated to provide the questionnaire in different formats. Absolutely. In terms of your query around capacity and around displacement in terms of effective PSPOs, there is no suggestion, there is no consultation on adding to specified areas with respect to this PSPO. And indeed, we, before preparing this report, we did have discussions with North Wales Police and also discussions with colleagues in the environmental enforcement team to identify, are there any other areas that are a particular problem, if you like, in inverted commas, with regard to dog control. The statistics don't indicate that. So as far as I'm concerned, there is nothing that has been formally put forward. And I would even say, and I'd go actually further and to say that if in due course, there was a request for further assistance, then it's not just looking at the statistics, but also it's considering capacity for enforcement as well. Because with a team of 6 officers covering such a vast area of environmental enforcement, you have to be considering that as well. So hopefully that puts your mind at rest there, Councillor Rose. Posters on sites, I think last time round, with respect to the Rosie Pool and also Mull Memorial Gardens, we did put some publicity in those areas. I think we will look at doing that again. Obviously, with a trading standards hat on, we have to be really careful using QR codes in general. So that would be whether it's a QR code, I don't know. And then And then again, with the alcohol PSPO, again, no changes are suggested, but this is just specific for the police. These would be powers for the police to be utilising, not members of our environmental enforcement team for obvious reasons, because, you know, it's a confrontational activity and they would be confiscating, potentially confiscating alcohol. So again, no changes there. Hopefully, if that's answered all of your questions, Councillor Rose, but more than happy to receive any contacts if you want to send them through to me. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Councillor Bithell.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. When the PSPOs were first introduced, you know, we were really hankering for this and had been for many, many years as local councillors. I'd always presumed, quite wrongly, that it was illegal to drink in public. And I would never have dreamt of walking down the street with a can of ale in my hand, even though I do enjoy a drink, as you probably well know. But, you know, we were told quite categorically by our lawyers at the time, Peter Evans, you will remember, some of you, an excellent lawyer, told us we didn't have these powers. But when the PSPO orders were introduced, we seized upon this because we had major problems, particularly in town centres like Mould and Shotton and so on, where individuals were congregating for long periods, particularly in the hot summer months, and becoming drunk. Some of them were alcoholics to start with. And again, they were annoying other people around and about. They were loud, they were obscene in their language and so on. And people just steered clear of them. And in Mould, for example, in the Daniel Owen Square, we have market traders there on Wednesdays and Saturdays. The market traders didn't want to be there because it was affecting their trade. And similarly, the customers didn't want to go there either. And again, the library was close by and the museum, so it was deterring visitors from using those particular facilities. So when this was introduced, it was well welcomed and indeed has worked. And again, there's no criticisms and problems with that. The problem has arisen because of dogs, and I think most people will recognise that. There was a discussion really in relation to dog bans, and the dog bans in terms of ensuring that people who have dogs pick up their excreta after they've deposited it on the pavements and on parks and so on and so forth. That again was very welcomed and has been very successful, I think, by and large. Similarly, banning dogs even on leads in children's play areas or on school playing fields again was very much welcomed by us, because again we were getting constant complaints as members about children coming home covered in dog excreta and mothers and so on having to wash their football clothes, their hockey clothes and so on and so forth. So that again has been fairly welcomed and has largely succeeded. In the last consultation there was a request that there be a total ban of dogs in two areas, the Rosie Park pool at Connesky and the Mould Town Park, Memorial Gardens, call it what you will. And that was there was a consultation on that, and again the overwhelming response was that they wanted that ban. There were over 60% in the case of Mould. It was even higher than that in case of the Rosie Pool. Now that was introduced. You know, there was a challenge for that. There was a hue and cry over that. Apparently, people have been going to the Mould Park for many years, didn't know that that was the Memorial Gardens, despite the fact that the notice of the consultation was on the gate, tied to the gate. And, you know, they obviously didn't know that the consultation was taking place and so on and so forth. The consultation did take place, and that was the result of it, really. And again, you know, I think we've quite customary, you know, it's customary that people, when they get the result from a consultation which they particularly agree with, that's fine. If they don't agree with the result, it's rubbish. So, you know, basically it was introduced and has been in place since then. Now, I have to say that by and large it's been ignored, totally ignored. You know, people are going there with dogs on leads, off leads and so on and so forth, and that's happening on a regular basis. And, you know, with 9 enforcement officers for the entire county to actually conduct traffic parking issues, litter picking, dog poo, you name it, it just doesn't work. We've got over 9 towns in the county, say nothing of the borough villages and so on, the rural areas. It's just an impossibility, and it isn't happening. You know, and I think the results there, and there's 3 penalty notice, fixed penalty notices issued, You know, I don't know who they're being engaged with. They're talking about what. It could be the weather for all we know. You know, but it hasn't worked, and it's been flagrantly ignored in that particular respect. So if this is done, I would insist that you know, we do take this far more seriously and enforce it. You know, dogs are going to the park, and people tell me, you know, on a regular basis that, you know, they can see this, and they can see the dogs on long leads and so on. You know, they say they're doing the right thing, the dogs on a lead, but that these long leads are just stretched across half of this room, and the dogs are still going into the flower beds and the shrubbery and so on, and doing what they will. And again, you know, this is happening on a regular basis, so it hasn't worked. And you know, I certainly hope that this is taken into consideration at this particular time. The naming of it, again, you know, people didn't know the name. Well, you know, I guess the Rosie Pool isn't the official name for the pool in Connersky, but that's what it's known as locally. The memorial aspect, I think, comes to the fact that the entrance to the recreation ground in Mold has got a fountain with a inscription on it, which is very badly worn, saying that it was built there as a recreation ground in memory of the George V. It was 1935 at the time of his death, you know, so basically it dates back to then. But certainly, you know, if this is going to be done, it needs to be done properly, and it needs to be enforced. The name, as I say, is known as the Memorial Gardens, but we know it Mold as the Mold Park and Flower Gardens, you know. So again, I think to cover all bases, that needs to be made known. The other thing is, in terms of the consultation, I would certainly agree with Councillor Parkers that, you know, we need to actually have in operation a paper survey as well for those people who can't use it or don't use the iPads and so on and so forth. That needs to be done, really. And the questions put, I think, are quite ridiculous, really. You know, and personally, I don't know what other members here, but I refuse to sign that. What's my religion got to do with it? What's my ethnicity got to do with it? What's my age or sexual orientation got to do with it? It's irrelevant, basically, and a nonsense. You know, all we need to know is, do you agree with the particular proposals for introducing dogs on leads in this particular area or not, or no dogs at all? Those are the kind of questions we want answering, and everything else is superfluous and quite ridiculous. And no wonder it's time consuming. No wonder we haven't got the staff to actually go through paper exercises if that's what it's all about, because 95% of the questionnaire is irrelevant in my view. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Bithell. Well, the paper copies has been addressed by the Chief Officer. So, Katie or Sean?
Yeah, just with respect to the voluntary questions at the end. So just to emphasise, these are corporate questions that are standard questions asked at the end of pretty much every corporate questionnaire survey. As I said, you won't, if you're filling them out online, you won't see the questions in that quite in this format, because they will lead after another. However, just to say that the only mandatory question is around confirmation that you are over the age of 16 years. All the other questions are completely voluntary. If you choose not to answer them, then that's absolutely fine. Yeah, they are set. They haven't been set by me. They've been set by corporately. Thank you.
Thank you. Katie, do you want
I haven't got anything further to add. You know, we have, as I've mentioned already, we've got a very small team who are, you know, trying to enforce multiple functions across the county. You know, we can't be present in every eventuality, unfortunately. You know, I am aware of the issues in the flower gardens or memorial gardens. You know, I was there myself a fortnight ago with Mold Town Council, and you know, it was apparent that people are taking dogs in there, but they were hardly rampaging round, you know, the gardens. They were just, you know, slowly following their owners. But again, you know, we can ask people to leave and point out the signs on the gates, but it is very, very difficult unless you know, again, we can send officers there, and often there won't be anybody there. That's the difficulty. Unless we're there 24/7, we're not going to obviously see people doing it, and we have such a small team. It's very, very difficult for us to enforce in every single case. And as I said earlier, our emphasis is on education and raising awareness rather than enforcement. Enforcement is the last resort when people don't comply.
Okay, thank you for that. I've got Councillor Pearce and then Councillor Marshall. Councillor Pearce.
Right, thank you very much, Chair. I noticed on page 34, the statistics, particularly the cumulative totals 2023 to 2026, and the number of fines issued are 3. That's an average over 3.5 years of less than 1 a year, which indicates that some officers have never issued a fine. So I'm just wondering the robustness of the process. These statistics and the law of average would say that, you know, surely they'd be more than 3 when the number of people engaged have been nearly 6,000. So I think I question that and why some officers haven't issued fines. I know they are doing other areas as well, but I think that we need to look at that, because the money generated from the fines would probably not cover a few cups of coffee for the officers. You know, it's of no benefit to the authority, any money that comes off the fines, but we are paying for that service with 9 officers. So I think we need to relook at it and have a look at the rules of engagement to see, you know, are people being let off when they should be fined? I don't know. That's just something that we're looking at as part of the scrutiny committee. I tend to agree with what Councillor Richardson said. He was asking, how does he report a dog off the lead on a Sunday? Well, I think Councillor Richardson has provided evidence and intelligence to Street Scene that on a Saturday and a Sunday afternoon, there are issues with dogs off leads. So wouldn't it be incumbent of the officers to pay a visit on a Saturday or a Sunday afternoon to actually see what the situation is? I know what happens in the school parking issues. When the enforcement officers turned up, everyone is parking in line with the highway code. But when they're not there, it's chaos. So I think that the answer to Wepper Park is to pay a visit, a random visit on a Sunday, and see for themselves. The other proposal that could be considered is simply have an answer phone where members, or excuse me, members of the public can ring a number. There's an answer phone. Thank you for your call. We'll lock it down, and it's dealt with when the office opens. But at least, you know, members are seen to be proactive and have actually reported it. The issue I have is already been made by a couple of members, particularly Councillor Bithell, over these ridiculous questions. They are intrusive, and I don't like them. I accept what Sian is saying about you don't have to answer them, but if this is a corporate ruling, it's open to challenge. Because, for example, what benefit is it whether I speak Welsh or not? What benefit is it if I'm married or not? And why do you need to know if my gender has changed since birth? It's absolutely ridiculous questions that have no place. You know, we don't need to put this to the public. I support the process. I endorse the process going forward, but I do have a concern over the questionnaire. The only way that I could support this is where we have prefer not to say for those questions, they are at the top of the list. So you look at the question, and if you prefer not to say, you tick the box and you move on. And I think that should be prominent as well. If that can be agreed, that all the questions where it says prefer not to say are the first box in bold, and the rest follows, I can support that. But it's unfortunate that although I do support the process, I can't support these questions being put out to the public as they are at the current time. But prefer not to say straight after the question at the top in a prominent position. That is the only way I can support this. Thank you, Chair.
Bring in the Chief Officer.
Yeah, if I could just answer the question about the equalities questions first. So they are a statutory function. We have to ask those questions. They're part of the public sector equality duty in terms of us meeting the Equality Act. So they're voluntary questions, so people don't have to answer them. But as a local authority, at the end of a survey, we have to have a means of assessing equalities. Again, we'd have to take it back to the equalities officer about the structure and format of the questions, because my understanding is they're preset in terms of those categories as well. But we will take your feedback and see whether they are able to be amended. But in terms of us excluding them, we can't do that because it's part of our statutory duties. I don't really want to repeat what I've already said about enforcement. You know, they're a stretch team. You know, where we have got evidence of persistent problems, we will target patrols. So we'll take that feedback from today. We'll take that away and consider how we best approach it going forward.
Thank you. Without putting Kevin Crumplin on the spot, would he have any personal knowledge of how often they do attend Leather Park? Without really wishing to get too specific, but I just wondered whether it's worth inviting Kevin to see whether he'd show some insight.
I think that would be unfair to put him on the spot today. And obviously we've got a report coming back in terms of the enforcement policy and fly tipping, so we can include something at that point. You know, it's a bit unfair to put them on the spot today. You know, they are out every day enforcing. You know, they generally, like I said earlier on, they generally work Monday to Friday, but if we have known problems where we've got issues in the evening, say with parking, or issues at weekends with parking, or other enforcement like environmental issues, they will obviously work at those times as well. But obviously that then means they're not in work in the week, because they're contracted for 37 hours, just like you or I, unfortunately. So it is really hard to span 6 officers, and it is only 6 we've got in post at the moment. You know, it is hard to span the full 7-day period over with, you know, in terms of that multidisciplinary function that we have to cover. So it is a challenge at the moment.
Okay, no worries. Thank you very much. Councillor Pearson, come back.
Hi, we can't hear online.
Apologies. I've just asked whether, once the Chief Officer has contacted the Equalities team, she confirms back as soon as possible whether my proposal that you prefer not to say box is moved to the top of each list under those questions. And I was going to say, but I've lost my thread now that Councillor Richardson contacted me. Can I come back in a moment? Yeah, I've lost my thread. Councillor Richardson interrupted.
No worries, sir. We'll move on for the moment. Councillor Marshall. You're on mute, Councillor Marshall. Okay, I take that. Councillor Richardson, well, Councillor Marshall's trying to sort his situation out.
Thank you, Chair. Casey's already clarified one of the points I was going to make. Two previous speakers talked about 9 enforcement officers, and I was sure I heard Katie say that currently we only have 6. In 2022, when I was elected, I remember Katie saying we've only got 12. So we've actually got half that at the minute. And just for clarity, I don't need a response to this, but when I was talking about a dog off the lead in Wepper Park, what I probably wasn't clear about was the dog was not only off the lead in the play area, dogs aren't allowed in the play area on the lead whatsoever. So the dog was somewhere it shouldn't have been, but the dog was off the lead. And if you know dogs and if you know what children are like, you know, if you want to get a dog excited, start running round and playing and having fun around it, and the dog will get excited with you. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you for that, Councillor Richardson. Councillor Marshall, have you? Okay, I'll bring Councillor Pearce in.
Yeah, what I was going to say is that it's been made clear to the committee that these are questions that have to be asked under the Equalities Act. I think that's the term that was used. So can we put on the questionnaire where it talks about you that the following questions are asked under the Equalities Act? Because if it was down to the county council, I'd certainly vote not to include them. But if we're being told it's corporate and is linked into the Equalities Act and they are required, I think it should be put there to the public why they're there. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Pearce. I did ask earlier, and maybe it's for a different committee or whatever, but I would like to know at some point what they do with the data and how that's translated into whatever document to, you know, because this is a specific subject. We'll ask those same questions on another different subject, being whatever. How does that relate? So I don't know if any of the officers can tell me. No.
We can certainly ask the question of the Equalities Officer, but I don't have the answer for you today. But I think it'd be a good, yeah, I think Councillor Pearce is right. If we include an explanation as to why we're asking the questions, that helps people understand it's separate.
Councillor Wakelam?
It says on page 40, the answers you give to this section will be used to help to understand how many people from different groups respond. For example, how many women, men, young people. They're trying to get what, I presume you're trying to glean who answers more surveys, you know, who's not being represented, how can we engage with people more in, say, I don't know, older people, younger people, that kind of stuff. I think that's what the information is trying to glean. But it does say on here, the only thing you have to answer is your age. And I presume the survey would be set up in a way that if you answer the age, you can then just proceed to the end and finish.
Yeah, I think it's a question for another area. I mean, geographically, there's going to be a variation completely, isn't there? But okay. Sorry, Councillor Marshall, have you been able to?
I think I have. Yes, regarding the dog fouling, I had an experience of somebody dog fouling up in front of my house. It took about a month of monitoring CCTV to actually catch the person doing it, or the dog doing it. I confronted the person the next day, denied it. So I reported it to the council by email, sent the video and everything, but I can't remember getting an acknowledgement or a response as to what's happened afterwards. The person now avoids our street, which is quite good. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much for that. Okay, we move then to the recommendation.
Thank you. You should have done what I did, chase one down the road and come back and do it. But on obviously the table on page 34 says 3 FPNs issued in 3 years. Doesn't sound a lot, that, does it? But what isn't listed is the amount of times that an officer has approached somebody and said, look, pick that up, or, you know, I'll have to issue with a fixed penalty. So I mean, sure, that's happened on numerous occasions. So perhaps another column should be in that table. And the officer should just make a note of how many times during that day they've given people a warning and they've picked it up. That's fine. If they haven't picked it up, they get a FPN. Perhaps that's something else, and then at least then it looks as though the officers are doing the job, which I'm sure they are. And having said that, I'll give a shout out to Martin Farr, because every time I not over the dog fouling, but any fly tip or anything like that, he's on the spot and it gets sorted. So the officers are doing a good job. So it's not only all about the FPNs issued, it's about the warnings they're given and the preventative measures that they use as well. Thanks.
Okay, thank you very much. Councillor Palmer?
Yeah, it does say on page 34, the amount of people, number of people engaged with over the above days, 5,927. Number of locations patrolled, 6,161. Number of days patrolled, 397. So it is highlighted that how many people have engaged with.
Okay, we'll move through to page 32.
Councillor Richardson's indicating.
Okay, Councillor Richardson, and we'll move to the recommendation then.
Thank you, Chair. It's just a question about the previous councillor that just spoke. He named a particular enforcement officer and said whenever, I assume he means whenever he's contacted him, he's been really good and responded. I was always told after contacting an enforcement officer personally, I was always told that's something that we can't do. And since then, I've never done that. Hence why when I'm in the park on a Sunday afternoon and someone says there's a dog in where it can't go, am I assuming that some councillors can contact enforcement officers directly and others can't? I could just ask for some clarity on that, please.
Can I just say there's no harm in giving officers praise now and again, is there? You know, and I'll always do that and I'll continue to do it. And if there's something wrong in doing that, you know, just shoot me down, you know, well, whatever you want to do. But I will always praise officers because it's very rarely that I have to criticise them. So they need praise. They're always criticised. Give them praise once in a while.
I understand what you're saying, and I've praised officers many, many times. But
okay, Councillor
what you suggested didn't come across like that.
Okay, we're going to move now to the recommendation that's on page 32. The recommendation is to endorse the public PSPO consultations and to participate in the process. Can I have a mover? Yeah. Moved. And can I have a seconder? Seconded. Have a show of hands, those in favour. That's carried. Thank you very much for your attendance, and that concludes the meeting.